Welcome in, everyone, to Late Night Baseball. That's Parker. I'm Anthony. We're just two dudes here every week talking baseball. And before we get started this evening, Parker, let me just say, huge shout out to everyone who has been following us on YouTube, who's been liking, subscribing, commenting on the videos. Parker, we hit 60 subscribers today. And folks, we're just two guys talking baseball every week. We didn't expect to hit 60 subscribers so fast. Parker, that's huge for us.
We didn't expect to hit 60 subs so fast, especially being that we had 40 subs at the time of recording last week. So,
Yes, sir.
I've been burning sage to the algorithm gods and everything like that. I'm really glad to see that it's working. But in reality, thank you so much to everybody who's liking, commenting, watching the videos. Once you click on it, please don't click off of it. Just let it play in the background. I don't care what you do. But I really appreciate the engagement and all the great discourse that's happening in our comment sections these days. You guys really liked talking about the Orioles, it seemed like. And well, I got news for you. We're talking about the Orioles today.
Heck yeah, more Orioles. And also, just screw the algorithm. Like, just follow us every week, watch the videos, listen. As long as you're doing that and sharing with your friends, the algorithm doesn't matter. So we appreciate you.
The algorithm will take care
Parker,
of itself at that point.
It sure will. So today, you're right, Parker. We have a lot on the docket today. We are going to talk about the Orioles again. We have some trade ideas for the Orioles who need some pitching, so we'll kind of end with that tonight. Of course, we're going to talk about huge news out of the commissioner's office, removing some bans for some notable MLB players. And then we're going to talk about Aaron Judge. As if he doesn't get enough love, we're going to give him some love here tonight. But Parker, before we do that, simmering question for you. Javi Baez, is he back?
This is close to home for me because I just watched Javi Baez single-handedly dumpster the Red Sox in a 3-game sweep the Tigers had over the Red Sox this past week. And in game 2 of that series, Javier Baez hit 2 home runs, one of them being, I think there were 2 3-run home runs for 6 RBI, and one of them being a 3-run extra innings in the 11th inning walk-off home run to send the Red Sox home and set up the 3rd game of the series for the sweep. Javi Baez is in a ridiculously interesting case study as it pertains to Major League Baseball, because this is a guy that for a 3 to 4 year span was one of the most electrifying players in Major League Baseball. He was just incredible in basically every single facet of the game. Won that World Series in 2016 with the Cubs. Was an okay player in that 2016 playoff run and World Series and in that regular season. But then in 18 and in 19, he popped off for over 6.5 WAR each season. 2020 was 2020. We'll not mark that up against him. But then in 2021, he put up 4.3 WAR again across 2 teams. He was on fire. He was on the cover of MLB The Show for a reason, right? And then he signs a massive deal with the Detroit Tigers, and forgive me if I'm wrong, I think it's $26 million a year he makes.
The AAV on that's $23 million. At the time, it was 6 years, $140.
Yeah, 6 years, $140. So it was kind of like what Bregman was looking for this past offseason, that kind of a deal for that kind of a player that can single-handedly bolster an offense, things like that. Slick defender, power bat from the side. Is Javi Baez just Alex Bregman, but a few years earlier? Maybe, who knows? But what happened when he went to Detroit? Well, when he went to Detroit, I don't think everybody realizes quite as bad as he's been. So last year, we'll start there, he had a negative 1.1 B-WAR. And one thing about B-WAR is it really is influenced by your defense. And Javier Baez, to his credit, has really always played incredibly good defense, very minimum Gold Glove caliber defense. So if you're getting a negative 1.1 WAR and playing incredible defense, you must be god awful at the plate. And he was. The OPS plus is a 46. The year before, he did put up a positive WAR. It was 0.8 WAR. Again, though, if it's so heavily influenced by your defense only putting up 0.8 WAR is like, oh my God, this guy's terrible. And again, it wasn't a 63 OPS plus. The year before was 2.4 WAR, but again, the defense was incredible and the OPS plus was in 91. I say all of that to say he's fucking back. This year it is 137 OPS plus. Right now he is sporting a 842 OPS. He is slashing 309, 346, 496. Already almost has 2 WAR on the young season. He and you know what's funny? He changed defensive positions. He started playing a lot of center field and some third base for these Detroit Tigers. And, you know, we talk about change of scenery as it pertains to, like, you know, going to a different team. This is a change of scenery in the sense of, okay, I'm now playing a new position and my team's competitive. Javi Baez is taking that and running with it. And he's an incredibly good ball player this year.
He sure is. You know, there was a lot of question. I know I had the question when they acquired him back and they signed him to that deal in 2022. Honestly, I thought the timing was a little weird. The Tigers were rebuilding at that point. It was arguable how many more years they had in that rebuild, right? I think when they hired AJ Hinch, yes, that kind of pedal to the metal on the rebuild, if you will. But I still was surprised they gave him so much money in that deal, considering that he was not truly Javi Baez of old, especially with the half a year he spent on the Mets. Let's not forget he was on the Mets for half a season. And he just didn't, he was not the same Javi that we saw with the 2015, 2016 Cubs teams. Now, having said that, you are right. He has found something. He has latched on to seemingly making better decisions at the plate, which we know for Javi Baez is very hard to do. I love the meme that you see literally twice a week of him swinging at a pitch 10 feet before it gets to the plate. Love that.
And in the other batter's box.
Correct. Now, here's what I'll say. What I think is most interesting about Javi, you look at what he's done just in May. This is what really gets me. Just in May, his WRC plus is 191. Okay. Just in May, his line is 333, 364, slugging 667. We know how baseball works. Do I tend to think these things will last for a full, 4 or 5 months? Of course not. Having said that, these are the type of things we know, Parker, when you have a few players on a team like the Tigers have right now. If you're putting together a month or two of good baseball with guys who are getting hot like this is where the Tigers run away potentially with the AL Central early this year. If it weren't for Javi Baez, that becomes a lot harder. But I just hope and pray that this is something that is not a lightning in a bottle situation for him and he can sustain it. If I was asked if he could sustain it, his record doesn't tell me that he will. I'm not betting on that, but it sure is hell fun right now while we have it.
Sure. I actually would argue in the opposite direction. I think that I'm in the camp that I think he does sustain this. And I'll explain why. When we look at the years that he was one of the best players on the planet, it was 2017, kind of, 2018, definitely, 2019, definitely, and then 2021, if we take out the COVID season.
Mm-hmm.
What was the common thread with those Cubs teams during that time? They were very competitive. The World Series season and the next few seasons after that, we're looking at that Cubs core of Rizzo, Bryant, and Baez and how competitive that team was and how they were really in it from the start every single year. And then when the team fell off, he kind of started to fall off. In 2021, it was only in 91 games, it was 2.6 WAR with a 105 OPS plus, and that's what got him traded to the Mets. Now, what happened to the 2021 Mets? They were surprisingly competitive. They were a good team. Not only that, but he was also playing second base across with one of his best friends, Francisco Lindor, who was playing shortstop. In 21 for the Mets, he, in just 47 games, so half the games, put up 1.7 WAR with the Mets to the tune of an 886 OPS, a 140 OPS plus. So on a competitive team, he was significantly more effective. Then he signs the deal with the Tigers in the following offseason. And the Tigers are bad. The young core is severely underdeveloped. bunch of these guys are still in the minors. There's really no supporting cast around him, and the Tigers are not really competitive. And you can see the motivation leave the man's body, like 2.4 WAR, 0.8 WAR, negative 1.1 WAR. And what happened last year with the Tigers? They surprised the world and they made a playoff run and they were good. And the young guys got good quick. And Tarek Skubal won the Triple Crown. And like, oh my God, now these Tigers are here. But in the process of the last 3 years, Javi Baez had dug himself a hole to where he was no longer even really a starter on this team. He wasn't contributing to this competitive environment. In this offseason, I think Javi Baez woke up every day and was like, I'm going to contribute to this fucking team. I am going to wake up in the morning, work my ass off, contribute to a winning ball club, and we're going to make a run. So I really think that this is going to be something that, because the Tigers are good, that this is going to be the thing that motivates him.
I agree with that logic, right? I understand where you're coming from. That makes perfect sense. And I hope in his case, I'm a Javi fan. I hope in this case that is what happens. Isn't that kind of bullshit, though? Like that whole concept of like, absolutely, my team's doing bad, so I'm just going to mail it in. And that, no. I hate that. Like Javi Baez of 2022 and 2023 should have played because he was an egregiously paid player.
Mm-hmm.
And he cashed in. He should have been a leader of that clubhouse. He should have performed then. I'm not saying that it was maybe, if this holds true and he had a change of heart and now he wants to bust his ass. That's great. Good for you. But you know what I mean? That's just icky to me.
It is bullshit. Yeah, like for sure. I get where you're coming from. AJ Hinch, after the Javi Baez walk-off, was interviewed by the media, and he said, I wish you guys could see how much this means to him. I wish you guys could see the turnaround he's gone through mentally and not talent-wise, but like the work he's put in. Yeah. And I think that's a valid. I think people grow, and I think people, he's 32 years old now. He's no spring chicken, but he is still athletic enough to play the outfield, play center field for a good young Tigers team. And he's also one of the only guys in that clubhouse that's been there and done that, won a World Series, knows what it's like to finish second overall in MVP voting in 2018. Like, I think that Javi Baez would tell you the last 3 years were bullshit. And I think that Javi Baez would also tell you that he's back. And I of course, he fully intends to be back. Like, maybe he never sees another fastball again and he just turns into a 64 OPS plus hitter for the rest of his career. Maybe that's the case. But for right now, with the renewed plate discipline kind of that we're seeing, and just the feeling that he's contributing to a winning effort, that can do wonders for a guy who's already made his money. Because at the end of the day, once you make your money in baseball, the only thing left to compete for is a World Series. And he may have felt that he was so far away the last 2 or 3 years that he was not going to win that World Series. And now here we are, a young Tigers team that is definitively the best team in the American League right now, in what is honestly a pretty competitive AL Central. I think this is the perfect environment for Javi Baez to revive his career and live up to that contract.
Yeah, well, now is the time. He could very well do it. He has, including this season, 3 more seasons on that contract. And I guarantee you the Tigers each of those years are going to be increasingly competitive. So that'll be fun to watch.
Yep. And we can talk about all we want. Basically, I'm going to call myself out here. We can talk about all we want. His plate discipline improving and things like that. Javi Baez basically for his entire career has been good for well above a strikeout per game played. He's been very free swinging.
Yes.
And he's been at right around 1 strikeout per game played for the last 3 years. He's still right around that number. He's played 35 games. He struck out 31 times. But we'll take the strike. 3 true outcomes. We'll take the strikeouts as long as you're hitting bombs too.
Correct. Absolutely. All right, Parker. Big news out of the commissioner's office. I know you and I immediately texted each other when this happens, per usual. Rob Manfred announced that he is putting in essentially a new rule for reinstating banned players after they pass. And in this case, he reinstated players posthumously? Is that the word?
Posthumously.
Posthumously.
Put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah, there we go. That exactly right. Whatever that was, that. But Rob Manfred went ahead and reinstated notably two players, Shoeless Joe Jackson of the infamous 1919 Black Sox, Chicago White Sox Black Sox scandal, and the all-time Major League hits leader, Pete Rose, who has a ton of controversy attached to him. Both of these guys were had lifetime bans because of gambling on the sport. Parker, this is big news, but it has some heavy nuance and implications. And my head kind of went in a few different directions when I heard this news.
So I'll start with Shoeless Joe. Well, first of all, let me clarify. So the ban, you're absolutely right. It's a ban that, concludes when the recipient passes. It basically defines a lifetime ban to a certain extent. It's like, okay, this is a lifetime ban. Their life is no longer, going. So the ban no longer goes as well. And due to that definition, it unbans a bunch of players that are and managers and figures in baseball that previously had lifetime bans. I
Right.
think that I'll start with Shoeless Joe. And by the way, I just want to point out that also unbans everybody involved with the Black Sox scandal, all 8 players.
Correct.
Yeah. So
Yes.
everybody that was involved with the Black Sox scandal is now unbanned. And really the only one that has a Hall of Fame case would be Shoeless Joe Jackson. Interestingly enough, I think a few of those players, if they hadn't thrown a World Series, like guys like Eddie Seacott probably would be
Yes.
in on a Hall of Fame conversation if they'd had whole careers. But here we go. I just want to point out Shoeless Joe Jackson here for a second. He is one of the most incredible players in baseball history. I think we talk about him in the same conversations as people like Ty Cobb for the early days of baseball, for just how effective he was as a baseball player. He was an incredible ball player, and by all accounts, he hit over 500 in that World Series he supposedly threw. He was approached
Yes.
by the people who were throwing the game. I believe the whole story is that he at first was kind of like coerced into it and then just decided, fuck it, like I'm not going to throw this World Series, and then ended up hitting over 500 in that World Series. Career 62.2 WAR. 62.2 WAR with 1,700 hits from a player that played from 1908 to 1920. 12 seasons in big league baseball, and he put up 62 WAR. This guy is an absolute stud. First ballot Hall of Famer in any other scenario where he was not wrongfully banned for throwing a World Series. So I am so excited for him to hit the ballot and be voted in, be on the first ballot to become a Hall of Famer. I think everybody would be in the same boat and agree with that.
Yeah.
But prominently, there's another man that was unbanned with this motion, and I've talked for a second here about Shoeless Joe. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about him as well, because I know he's close to your heart as a White Sox fan.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he goes down as undoubtedly one of the more productive players in White Sox history, as you kind of laid out there. But his ban has always been riddled with controversy, mainly because of the performance, like you mentioned. But there's been tangible evidence that he may not have been all in on this, as he has been accused over all these decades for a variety of reasons, whether that it was his personality, his performance, even as far as his ability to actually read and write, like his actual education as a person, which is
Right.
crazy to think about. This is a very layered conversation. But more than anything, he was one of the most prominent players in the sport in the early 20th century, bar none. So I do think he's going to get in eventually here. I would not be surprised if he got in the first ballot, which I believe the first ballot for both these gentlemen would be actually in 2027, from what I understand, because remember that veteran committee does a 3-year rotation. But excited to see this guy get in. It'll be huge. It'll be something that if you asked me 5 years ago if this were even possible, I honestly would have told you no. I did not see this coming at all. But Parker, Pete Rose, different story, I think.
Yeah. One thing, real quick, before we move into Pete Rose, one thing I want to point out is that baseball, we are very familiar with a Major League Baseball, a version of Major League Baseball that has a commissioner at the top, right? A all powerful commissioner that can make any decision, and it is law. what's the figure, like autocratic figure in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I want to point out that the reason that the Black Sox were banned was because, in response to the story coming out that the 1919 World Series was thrown, that is when baseball actually named its first commissioner in 2000, or excuse me, in 1920. His name is Kennesaw Mountain Landis. He was baseball's first commissioner, and his job was to restore confidence in the game after the Black Sox scandal. And one of his first things that he did, first act as commissioner, was to ban all the players involved. It
Yep.
was kind of like, I'm going to make an example out of these guys, regardless of the implications, regardless of whether or not you were truly involved in the situation. You are banned if your name was brought up. And that's part of the reason why it's great that now we can make these retroactive decisions and restore, because his job was to restore confidence in the game. And I think at the time that's kind of what the game needed. And it's unfortunate that Shoeless Joe got wrapped up into that. But now we're restoring confidence in the game in a new way. So I think that this truly is in the spirit of the decision of Commissioner Landis, because I think that this restores confidence in myself, that we have a checks and balances system. We have people that can make decisions later on that can further better the game. So again, a big fan of this as far as Shoeless Joe's concerned. Now, Pete Rose is another story here. I have been and was for a long time very much in the camp of, let's get Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. He is the all-time hit leader. He has 4,256 hits. Famously has the most hits in big league history. 79.6 WAR over the course of his career. He was a switch hitter. He was a manager. He was Charlie Hustle. He was the lifeblood of baseball for a long time, given credit for inventing the head first slide. But it's always the stuff that did not happen on the ball field that becomes the reason for why Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame. And I seriously am concerned with whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame. Not because I think that I get to make the decision whether ethics should play a part in you getting into the Hall of Fame, but because the precedent was set for us that ethics do matter whether you get into the Hall of Fame. And there are several players that, if Pete Rose gets into the Hall of Fame, there are several players that should seriously consider. I don't know if they should consider suing. I don't know. There are Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Roger Clemens, Kurt Schilling, so many players that have recently been snubbed from Hall of Fame consideration for off the field situations. Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa. That if Pete Rose were put into the Hall of Fame, puts into question every decision that they've made, I think, in the last 20 years with regards to players with ethical problems.
I'm glad you framed it that way, because that's exactly kind of what came to mind for me first. And I don't know where I come down on this, if I'm being honest, right? You and I, consume this sport on a daily basis. And I don't even know that I have a solid stance on this, because I think there is some value to considering ethics. I mean, the freaking guidance that the Hall of Fame gives the voters is consider on-field record and reputation, or something along those lines. Like, it is very clear that the guidance is consider on-field and off-field. And so
Right.
in that spirit, the precedent has absolutely been set. Having said that, there's this conversation that just is always present, and that is context, right? Context matters. Particularly in the baseball world we live in now, I often think how hypocritical that gambling has become such a prevalent part of baseball as we know it today. Now, having said that, Pete Rose did something totally different, right? He did bet on St. Louis Reds baseball while he was managing the team. Obviously, not good. That's as direct as you can get.
Cincinnati Reds. Sorry.
What did I say?
You said St. Louis.
Did I say St. Louis Reds? Wow, I'm
St.
sorry.
Louis Reds. Yep, that's fine.
God.
But he did. He did.
And
No,
the,
you're absolutely right, though.
but
He bet on
he did. He
Cincinnati
did.
Reds baseball.
He did. And so there, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's okay. I'm not saying that's obviously very wrong. And that's I think the most direct way to break that rule. That's always been a rule in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
However, at what point does that come up to the line of we have sport networks for baseball sponsored by FanDuel? You look at the ballpark and you see 50 advertisements for every betting site under the sun.
Fenway Park has a DraftKings sign on top of the monster, and before the game, they give FanDuel sports betting odds on the pregame show before every single game that is played.
Like, at some point, Parker, to that point, you can't really sit here and say, "Oh, all these guys are banned because they gambled." I mean, it's hard. It's hard to do that with a straight face.
I agree. I do agree that gambling can no longer be the determining factor in you not making the Hall of Fame. Now, gambling on your own games and things like now, here's the deal. Pete Rose did more than just gamble on baseball games. He gambled on baseball games he was managing. Not only did he gamble on baseball games that he was managing, he continued to gamble, whether legal or not, after his ban that was pertaining to gambling. Throughout the rest of his lifetime, he refused to show a single shred of contrition, of sorrowfulness, of desire to change anything. He never apologized. I'm going to start listing a bunch of I just started listing a bunch of things, and I'm further going to list things that he did. And I got all of this was reminded of all of this from other podcasts and stuff that I listened to. Particularly, I listened to Baseball's Dead this week. And they mentioned that like he didn't admit to gambling for 15 years after he was banned, and he only did so when it came time to write a book so he can make a buck.
And Parker, I mean, on top of that, though, like, and I don't mean to take our podcast this direction, but this is just the truth. Like, there was sexual assault concerns as well, and underage
sexual assault with a 16-year-old girl.
Correct, underage women. So I don't. I'll say it this way. All due respect to Pete as a human being, but let's just keep it real. Every anecdote, every story, everything we know about Pete Rose, his whole career, evidence of an asshole.
I was just going to say, he's an asshole. Like, and you know what? Assholes can go in the Hall of Fame. There are assholes in the Hall of Fame. Here's the deal. If you're going to put assholes in the Hall of Fame, you cannot eventually change your mind, I think. Like, this is what I was getting at earlier. If you're going to not let Pete Rose go in the Hall of Fame, that's fine. We're honestly on a clean. We're good. Like, I don't know. You can't get people out, I don't think, of the Hall of Fame. So Ty Cobb, sure, you're in the Hall of Fame. Pretty sure Ty Cobb murdered a guy, but like he's in the Hall of Fame. He already is. We're gonna take that at face value. Babe Ruth, also, there's some shady shit going on with Babe Ruth. His apartment caught fire with his wife trapped inside, and then he was married a week later while he was on the road. So, like, okay, there's some weird shit going on with Babe Ruth, too. We've got guys with shady past in the Hall of Fame. But if you're going to choose to put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame now, in this climate with today's precedent that has been set, there are a lot of players and a lot of fans that should have objection to them being excluded. Barry Bonds belongs in the Hall. I've been beating the drum for years. Barry Bonds belongs in the Hall of Fame. Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Roger Clemens belong in the Hall of Fame. Kurt Schilling basically didn't make it in the Hall of Fame because he's a dick. Like, in the world. He's very political and he has divisive political views, and that's a lot of the reason why he was not in the Hall of Fame. Why he is not in the Hall of Fame. 250 game winner, multiple World Series winner, co-World Series MVP with Randy Johnson in 2001. Like, my God, Kurt Schilling should probably be in the Hall of Fame.
Here's the thing with that, though, is, to me, this is how I think about the Hall of Fame. And this may be the incorrect way, but this is how I personally view it. To me, the Hall of Fame, contrary to what the name implies, like, the name implies, like, here is this place we honor baseball greats, and we put all of them that get in here on a pedestal. Cool. At face value, that makes sense. I view the Hall of Fame as telling the story of baseball and all the people
Mm-hmm.
that have come and gone in the sport. What I think is a potential option for Hall of Fame going forward is, instead of muddying the waters between ethics, context, character, assholery, whatever you want to call it, okay? Maybe there is a discussion to be had about, let's look at the performance, right? Number one. And then two, ask yourself the simple question. I've asked you this before on the show. Can you tell the story of baseball without said person? If you
Yeah.
cannot, then they probably belong in the Hall of Fame. Now, here's the asterisk to that, the second part. If you can't tell the story without an A-Rod, without a Pete Rose, without a Curt Schilling, guys, I would think you probably can't. Then there needs to be an acknowledgement of, yes, but here are the other things. Like you would when you teach history, like you would when you
Mm-hmm.
tell the story of history. And if those players aren't open to acknowledging those things, if A-Rod, who is admitted to, the steroid stuff, is not willing to have that be part of his story, then they can opt out of being in the Hall of Fame. Maybe that's the way it should go.
Maybe. I could see that. I also think that they do tell the story of Pete Rose. There are jerseys, bats, gloves, videos, balls, autographs of Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. There are jerseys, bats, gloves, autographs, and videos of Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, so I'll ride that train for a second. If that already exists, then why aren't they in there?
Well, is it are we it seems like the Hall of Fame is delineating telling the story of baseball, because at the end of the day, the Hall of Fame is a museum and they're going to tell the story of baseball front to back.
Correct.
They are
Correct.
delineating telling the story of baseball and getting a plaque among the Hall of Fame inductees in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And if we're going to make those two separate things, I think that's okay, mostly because I don't run the Hall of Fame. And if that's how they've chosen to run it, and if they stick to that organizational structure throughout their life, I think that that's their right to do so. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown is completely separate from Major League Baseball. So if we're going to make that distinction between telling the story and inducting players, then that's okay. And it seems like that's what they're doing. But here's what's going to happen. I truly believe that Pete Rose, in December of 2027, when the Eras Committee convenes next, I truly believe that Shoeless Joe and Pete Rose will both be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And if that's the case, I'm going to be extremely happy for Shoeless Joe, and I'm going to be fucking pissed for Pete Rose. Not because I don't think he is a Hall of Famer, but because
Agreed.
I wish that Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, and all of these other guys were inducted as well.
Agreed. I'm with you 100%. I will also feel the same way. But does that not still raise the question of, if we're even going to feel that way about those guys who missed out, if you elect Pete Rose, that still begs the question, how are we determining who gets in the Hall of Fame? Which I think has always been the larger question here. It's always been the debate, is how much subjectivity are we allowing into this project? And could it ever be an objective process? Probably not. Could some of it be objective with statistics? Sure, to a degree, but never completely. But it still doesn't solve that main problem. Put Pete Rose aside. The main problem is there's a number of guys who are not in the Hall of Fame that should be, for various reasons, because some 57-year-old sports writer who hasn't written in baseball in 7 years has a goddamn vote. That's a problem.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I do think, here's the deal. If Pete Rose gets put in the Hall of Fame, it will be by the Eras Committee, which is made up of 12 voting members, baseball historians, baseball writers, and players, evenly split between the three categories. If he's put in by those people, I think that there's actually a really increased chance that Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, and all those guys that I've mentioned several times do get put in an Eras Committee setting. Because I think that players who played against Roger Clemens would tell you he should be a Hall of Famer. I think the players that played against Manny Ramirez, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, etc., they would say that he deserves to be a Hall of Famer, because at this point in time, the only way to make it in on the BBWA ballot is to be voted in by the BBWAA, whereas the Eras
Right.
Committee gives the opportunity for players to have a say, for historians to have a say. And I think that those guys will probably look at it differently than the BBWAA has.
100%. And I'm going to say something here that's pretty bold, Parker, and I feel strongly about this. I really do think if we had to fix the whole voting system, and this is thinking about it no more than the 5 seconds I literally just thought about it, get rid of the BWAA voting. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
I love the Eras Committee. I love how it's ran. If you want to expand that a little bit, great. But I trust that group to make a
Yes.
better, diverse, informed decision than these writers. No disrespect to the writers. I love the writers. They produce great work. Some of them I think they're awesome, but they're just not the best people for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the people that played with them and against them should have as much of a say in, or maybe it's just we can still have the same three camps vote, but we have to completely change the structure of the voting. Maybe you go down to 99 voters, 33 players, 33 historians, and 33 writers, and that's
Bingo.
every single. And you have to get 75 to get in, because it's right now it's 75%. You have to get 75% of the vote to get into the Hall
Right.
of Fame. Maybe you restructure the voting system, and maybe not every writer gets a vote every year. And I think that would be a more, if you replicate the eras, I think the Eras Committee being only 12 people is crazy. It's like the same. You can manipulate a jury of your peers that is that size pretty easily. So like, all it takes is like the flavor of the week's topic to be how good Alex Rodriguez was, and he gets in. So I think that you need a bigger sample size, but the same split and diversity among voters, in my opinion. And we do this every single fucking year when it comes to Hall of Fame voting. You and I go off and talk about how it's broken and how it doesn't work, and everybody does along with us. And I think that this is just really, especially if Pete Rose is inducted in December 27, I think it's really going to shed light on how broken the system is, and how one particular group of people who share a very like-minded set of ideals get to decide who is a Hall of Famer and who isn't.
Well, in the case of Shoeless Joe and Pete Rose, we'll certainly see how that goes. We'll put a pin in this because we'll know we'll revisit this at some point in the future.
December of 27. I'll see you back.
Perfect. Parker, I want to talk about Aaron Judge. And specifically, let me be clear. You wanted to talk about Aaron Judge because you're an Aaron Judge stan. I also love Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is putting together another insane season. And Parker, you posed the question to me, when is it appropriate to call Aaron Judge the best right-handed hitter of all time? Sir, you have the floor.
Okay, so Aaron Judge, over the last 4 seasons, including this year, so 2022 onward, has put up 10.8, 4.6 because he missed 60 games, 10.8, and 3.6 so far this season WAR. Aaron Judge has, in those 3 seasons, eclipsed the WAR total for several perennial all-stars in our game. Aaron Judge this year is carrying a 412 batting average into play today. He has a 1279 OPS, 257 OPS plus. He is a one-man wrecking crew as a hitter for these New York Yankees, and is basically the only reason that the New York Yankees have maintained their lead in the AL East. Also, combined with the fact that the Red Sox have played fucking terribly over the last couple months, at least by the standard that they set for themselves with the moves they made in the offseason. And I just think that a guy who has this much bold, italicized information on his baseball reference page, the owner of the American League home run record for a single season, a guy who basically every single year that he is healthy, truly healthy, and putting the bat on the ball, you can chalk up for 30 home runs and 100 RBI. I just think that this guy does more damage as a right-handed hitter than any other right-handed hitter in baseball history. Like, think about the best right-handed hitters in baseball history. Who comes to mind? To me, it's like Albert Pujols. I think about guys like Manny Ramirez, maybe a Mark McGwire. I think I would rather have Aaron Judge in there over any of those guys.
Ooh, you're forgetting about one. Can I tell you, when you first posed this question to me, only one person came to my mind right away, and I think the only person's worthy of a debate. It's Willie Mays.
Willie Mays. Yeah.
It's Willie Mays. It's Willie Mays and Aaron Judge. Honestly, I think that's the debate.
Okay. Aaron Judge is in his 9th MLB season, right? 10th MLB season currently. He is 33 years old, and he currently, going into play today, has 330 home runs. If I'm not mistaken, Willie Mays has 660, or is that Ken Griffey Jr.? I'm going to look it up.
He has 660. Yeah.
Yeah, Willie Mays has 660 home runs. So he is actually at, weirdly enough, the halfway point for Willie Mays' home run total, which was set over the course of 23 big league years. So if Aaron Judge completely trounces the Willie Mays home run mark of 660 and gets to 700, which I truly think that Aaron Judge will do, where are we at? In 10 years, if Aaron Judge is approaching 700 home runs or even has like 630 home runs, where are we at? Because Willie Mays, to your point, put up 5 seasons of 10 or more WAR, and Aaron Judge has 2.
But all right, so here's the not necessarily a problem with what you're saying, but let's extrapolate that, because that is it. He is slightly over. So I did a comparison. He is slightly over where Willie Mays was 10 years into his career. So if I go to Willie Mays, 10 years, Aaron Judge in 10 years is at 330 home runs. Willie Mays in that same time frame, let me make sure I get it right, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. He's at 279. All right, so
slightly over. That's a whole season of work.
Okay, yes, I know. 60 home runs. Okay, 60 home runs over. Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is Willie Mays ended up playing another 12 seasons. Guys, Aaron Judge is 33, and he's a big dude. All right, so my question to you, Parker, is could he hit 700? Maybe, possibly. But how long is this guy playing? That's a fair question.
Well, how long is he under contract for?
Till I think about 3,074.
Exactly. So hold on. Let's look at the Judge contract. Let's look at the Judge contract real quick, because I'm very interested here.
Through 2021.
2031.
Sorry, you're right. 2031. Yeah, I can't talk tonight. 2031.
You don't. So he's under contract until his age 39 season.
That's going to be hard to hit, Parker.
39.
That's going to be hard to hit.
So this year being his age 33 season. So I don't know, man. He hits so many fucking home runs.
All right, let
me. We have 5 months or 4 months left.
All right, slow your roll here, Parker. Let's see. So I love that you're literally such an Aaron Judge stan. It breaks my heart to try to like prove you wrong right now. I'm so sorry. So, how many seasons does he have left? Let's call it 5, 6.5. Okay, right? So we'll call
you
this
think
one
he's
a half.
Only going to play 6 more seasons?
Let's just go through the contract, right? 2020, 2031. Okay. 6 more seasons. So 6.5, I'll give you a half for 2025. So if you subtract 700 home runs minus what he has now, Jesus, I can't think today. My brain's not working. 700 home runs minus the 330 he has now. He's at 370 he needs left to hit 700. So let's just do an average. So divided by 6.5.
His 162 game average is 52 home runs times 6 seasons is 312. So Correct. He does come up short in 6 seasons.
he does come up short in 6 seasons because what's the average of home runs if you do that 370 divided by 6.5? You're looking at 56 home runs a season. Parker, are you telling me 39-year-old Aaron Judge is going to hit 36 home runs?
No, but
Or
I'll tell
excuse
you
me,
that
56. 56.
So here's the deal. Do we detract from Aaron Judge because he doesn't do the 1973 and 1972 Mets years of Willie Mays where he tacks on an extra 6 and 8 home runs? He hit 18 at the age of 40. Like, if Aaron Judge doesn't do the seasons that take him into his age 40, 41, 42 years and tack on those ticky-tack home runs at the end of the year, at the end of his career, do we still think he's a less productive offensive player than Willie Mays?
No. Let's separate that, okay? I'm talking about the point of hitting 700 home runs, okay? The point of hitting 700 home runs, it would be hard for him to get there. The average home runs he'd have to hit in the next 6.5 years is 56 homers. Now, you're right. Assume some of those years he hits 62, 65. Maybe he has a couple of those years in there. But still, that's not going to make up for a year when you have 30, 35, like a normal human being when you're 38 and 39, which if you had to go
that was totally fine. Just because Willie Mays played for a million seasons, Willie Mays' 162 game average was 36 home runs.
True.
So if this is a guy that over the course of a 16-year career averages 48 home runs, is that not a better offensive player throughout his career?
No, I'm saying something totally separate. Yeah, I was talking about the 700 home runs point, but to your point of who's the better right-handed hitter, I'm just being a pain in the ass on the 700 home run thing. On your initial question of is he the best right-handed hitter of all time? Yes. I think it's.
I think Willie Mays is. Let me make this very clear. I think Willie Mays is definitively a better player than Aaron Judge.
Yes.
Yes.
Better player.
Offensive right-handed hitter, though?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that goes to Aaron Judge. At the end of his career. Right now, you got to give it to Willie Mays.
Correct, because your initial question was, is it time to start talking about it? I think it's very okay to talk about it.
Okay.
I think it's a valid
argument. You know who else is a right-handed hitter? Hank Aaron. Let me ask you a question, though. Offensively, if you had to plug any three of those players in at DH in a offensive season in their prime, which one are you picking today? Their best season. If you could take their best season and plug it in at the DH position, which one are you taking? Because
all right. Let me think
subscribe to the line of thinking that your 7-year peak is kind of what defines you as a Major League Baseball player. We can't predict health, but the guys who have the 7-year peak, like Pedro Martinez has an argument for being the greatest pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball because his 7-year peak was arguably better than any other pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball.
All right. Let me think out loud on this one. This is hard. The reason why it's hard for me is because I understand where you're going with this. Is Aaron Judge going to be my designated hitter? You probably can't find anyone better. However, if I want a hitter in the fourth spot and I'm in a tight game in a World Series and I want someone to either get on base, get a hit, get a home run, and not strike out, it's hard not to go with Aaron for one reason. His strikeout percentage is miles lower than Aaron Judge's, is even in his best season. I mean, You look at Hank Aaron's best season, his strikeout percentage, his best season, 7%. Like, I could put him up there and know that I'm not going to get at least one of the true outcomes. You know what I mean? Whereas you're still getting that with Judge. So I'm not saying I'm picking him over Judge, but that's huge for me.
I'm doing a stat head player comparison between the two, the first 10 seasons of their career, and I want to see what it looks like.
You see what I mean?
Fucking interesting, man. So I'm going to take WAR out of it because we're not taking defense into account. Willie Mays wins every counting stat, and Aaron Judge wins every rate stat. Willie Mays has more, except for home runs. Willie Mays has more hits, more RBI. Stolen bases is, it's an offensive player, so you have to take stolen bases
Yeah.
into account. But I'm talking about plate appearance, like what happens in your plate appearances. Willie
Yeah.
Mays also wins the rate statistic of batting average, 316, which I just think he was hitting against worse pitching back then. Call me crazy, but I think the pitching in the 60s was worse than the pitching it is now.
Fair.
Aaron Judge does lose batting average. He does still have a 293 career average. Like, the guy can fucking hit for average. When it comes to on-base percentage, Aaron Judge has 20 points higher. Slugging percentage, he's 20 points higher. OPS, he is 50 points higher. And OPS plus, which is what I'll fall back on, mostly because it supports my argument, but also because it's the true measure of like overall offensive production when it comes to swinging a baseball bat. He's 18 points higher through their first 10 seasons. This is just 10 seasons versus 10 seasons. And I did take out Willie Mays' first season at 17 years old, which was a terrible season, really. But I took that out. I just did the 10 seasons, second year to 11th year.
I mean,
and this is also an Aaron Judge that is not done with his 10th season.
Correct. I mean, hey, your argument's a good one, and I'm here to tell you that I it's hard not to agree with it, right? It absolutely is okay to have a conversation about Aaron Judge being the best right-handed hitter of all time. When you look at the Mount Rushmore of the best right-handed hitters of all time, easily Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Aaron Judge, and we can decide who the fourth one is. Hands down.
Who would be the fourth one?
David Eckstein.
Ooh. Derek Jeter. Alex Rodriguez, probably.
Shut up.
Alex Rodriguez, I would put up there. Pujols. Those two, or the first two that come to mind. I would take the Alex Rodriguez career. I would take the Albert Pujols home run total. But they're both like within 10 home runs of each other, so I think I would just take Alex Rodriguez.
You have me thinking. That's an exercise for another day.
Yeah, that is an exercise for another day. We got to start doing Mount Rushmores. This is a topic that has been done a million times on Baseball's Dead. They kind of like, they just do Mount Rushmores during the offseason, like best pitchers, best right-handed hitters, best stuff like that. Best, they do team Mount Rushmores. Let's do the Rockies. What are the best 4 players in Rockies history? We can start doing shit like that. I'm down.
We absolutely can. We'll pencil that in. All right. So, Parker, one of the things I wanted to do today was follow up on a conversation that we had last week when we talked about how abysmal the Orioles are doing and how everyone and their mother and brother knew it was going to be due to the pitching for the most part. And I want to give a shout out to one of the folks that listens to us, Mr. Big 0606 on YouTube, commented on the Orioles video we posted last week. And he said, hey, essentially the Orioles should, pick up the phone, call the Astros, and try to get Framber Valdez. And that got me thinking, Parker, let's come up with some ideas, because clearly Michael Elias is doing shit. So why don't we, help a brother out and give him some people he can go after today that he can get to fortify the Orioles pitching. So we're going to go back and forth. Let's go one by one here. Parker, who did you think the Orioles could get today? Give me one.
Okay. One thing I want to point out real quick. Thank you so much, Mr. Big 0606. If you guys leave comments, we will talk about this type of stuff on the podcast. We'll post the clip also at the end, so you guys will probably see yourselves being talked about and the things that you say on the podcast. So thank you very much for your recommendation. I do think it's a terrible recommendation.
Don't be a dick.
I'm just being a dick. I don't think that
it's great, Mr. Big.
Happen. Yeah. I don't think that particular move would happen. Why? The Astros are currently a game out of the wild card. They are 22-20. They look to be poised to try to make a playoff run. Holy fuck. The Twins are on an 11-game win streak. Didn't they do this last year?
Wait, hold on. Pause for
the Twins are on an 11-game win streak.
They are.
Oh my God.
Well, guess what, Parker? While you're talking about it, hold on. While you're talking about it, the Cardinals in their last 10 or 9-1, they had a 10-game win streak here recently.
That's crazy.
They're 1 game out of first behind the Cubs now. The Cardinals.
that's going to be a fucking great division to look at. All right, that's been win streak talk. Late night
back
win
to it.
streaks. Holy shit. So the Astros just got completely dogged by the Minnesota Twins to lose the third wild card spot. And they are currently a game out of the wild card. Now, I just don't think that Manfred Pardon leaves that roster. I know I believe he's slated to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, and I think that's why the recommendation was made, which at the end of the day makes perfect sense. I see where you came from, Mr. Big, but I don't think the Astros are looking to part with any pitching. I think that they're looking to make a run. Now, my first name is the most obvious name. We've talked about it before. I figured I would put him on my list because
wait. Don't leave Framber. Okay, hold on. I should have said this before. I took Mr. Big's idea and put it into baseball trade values to see if we can make a deal. All right.
Okay.
So I want to show that first. And also, I do think the Astros are going to make a run this year. They're going to run right into the ground. Anyway, so, sorry, it's just a hot take. I've had strong feelings about the Astros. They're going to fall off eventually. It's happening this year. Stay tuned. Okay, take it to the bank.
Yeah. Okay.
So Framber Valdez, baseball trade value, great site. Don't take it 100%, for what it is, but they're pretty darn close, and I like using the tool because it's kind of creative. So I put in a Framber Valdez trade to the Orioles. So I want to go ahead and put this up here so that we can go ahead and show you exactly what we're looking at as what came out of baseball trade value. So put together this. Now, you brought up Parker. He's in the last year of his contract free agent deal. Well, what if the Orioles got Framber Valdez and $3 million in cash, and the Astros got Cedric Mullins? Because who has one of the worst outfields in baseball? Well, golly gee, it's the Houston Astros. And both of these guys are in the last year of their contract. So this, if you wanted a trade, Mr. Big, of what would look like to have kind of an equal total value, you're looking at maybe something like this. If Houston is okay giving up some pitching, like you said, Parker.
Okay. I'm pretty sure the this is really splitting hairs here, but I really like this comparison because, to your point, Cedric Mullins in the last year of his deal, I would assume is probably going to be taking a walk in a free agency or I don't think the Orioles should extend him. I think that he should be hitting the free market.
Yeah.
So I do think this is a good deal for both sides. I don't know, though. I just don't think that the Astros have the wealth of starting pitching that they need to justify a move like this. I also think that if I'm splitting hairs, really splitting hairs, I think Cedric Mullins, I don't think a left-handed bat is what the Astros would need. I think they would be more wanting a right-handed bat, especially moving into the playoffs with the Crawford boxes playing at home. I think things like that matter.
I mean,
but he's going to play an electric, very good defensive center field in a ballpark that has interesting outfield angles and could really use a very good center fielder with Jose Altuve in left and is it Chas McCormick in right? So, yeah, I could see this move. I could see it. If the Astros are dealing from a place of wealth later on, maybe somebody separates themselves, kind of like Ronel Blanco did last year in their rotation. But I just wonder, I think starting pitching is such a premium, especially your three-headed monster going into the playoffs, that the Astros are not going to want to part with. Framber Valdez, who will be pitching his ass off, presumably going into a free agent offseason. I think that he's going to want to pitch in the postseason. Like, look what happened to Walker Buehler this offseason. He got probably more money than he was worth from the Red Sox, mostly because he just pitched his ass off in the postseason. So I think Framber's going to want to do that. And I think the Astros will be wanting to benefit from that.
Yeah, I would think so. I did put together that Framber one. I used that as one of mine. I do have two more. But before we get to one of mine, Parker, go ahead and continue on with your first player that you had.
My first player is the slam dunk pick that I have on my board. We've talked about this before. We've talked about how the Orioles should have done this all in the offseason, but I think Sandy Alcantara should be wearing should be wearing Orioles orange and black by the end of the season. I think that he's, obviously one of those guys. He's also headed for free agency. I think you trade for Sandy. I think you extend Sandy, give him $200+ million to stick around because that's the going rate for ace pitchers these days. Yeah, I think that's the guy. Not reigning anymore, but in his last full season, he was the NL Cy Young winner.
Point of clarification there, Parker. So, what makes Sandy so valuable, in addition to obviously what he's doing on the mound, is he actually already signed an extension.
Oh
He
my God.
is under team control. I know he's under team control for another year through 2026 with a
Okay.
27 club option, which is
Wow.
just you
So
got to
3
get
years of
someone like
Sandy.
that.
Yeah. 3 years of
Yeah.
Sandy. And if there's any, that's the thing. So we're talking about this trade scenario with the Orioles, who could not be dealing from a place better than they are. Like, now here's it hurts
Yeah.
them and it helps them. They have all of this prospect capital, but that's the problem. The Marlins are going to want half of that prospect capital for a guy like Sandy Alcantara that's going to give you 3 years of control on the back end.
Yes. And here's the thing about these trades, Parker. You know, us as fans, I think we're naive pretty easily when it comes to these trades. But the fact of the matter is, if it's a good trade, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a little
It's
bit.
going to
That's how these
exactly.
things work.
And good executives make trades that hurt. Do you think Craig Breslow thought, wow, I can't wait to trade my last 2 first-round picks going into the offseason this past year? No, probably didn't. But what he did get was an ace that has given the Red Sox a 6-3 record in his starts.
Yeah.
For those first-round picks. And it looks to be getting even better because he just threw his fastest pitch of the season. I think it was the fastest pitch of his career in the last start that he made against the Royals. So yeah, I think that's the type of stuff you're going to trade your number 1 prospect for this guy. This is the type of guy to do that for, especially when if you truly believe in that lineup, if you truly think this is the future, you need to be trading for guys with control. And every single guy on my list, now I'm not going to take credit for Sandy because, to be honest, I thought he was a free agent at the end of the year. But every other guy on my list has control associated with them too. And I don't think you can get all of them, but you need to go get one of them.
Absolutely. That's a really good one. I took a different approach, Parker. I took an approach of, let's see how many arms we could get for the Orioles because they badly need multiple and we want to get them through 162. And let's look at the teams that would actually be willing to trade some arms because they're either out of it or on the fringes. So I have one really maybe realistic trade, another one that's a little goofy, but equated to the fair value. So I'll start with one of mine. So one of mine, I actually went to, let me pull it up so we can take a look at it. So I actually went to the Pirates for my first trade. The Pirates are doing pirate things. I don't know what the hell they're doing. I think they're coming in as contenders, and now we don't know what the hell is in their future.
Yep.
So I suspect that they will be willing to sell off some pitching in return for some prospects. So what
currently
I did,
the second worst team in the National League at a 15-29 record. Sorry, go ahead.
Bingo, great anecdote. But what I did was I sent prospect from the Orioles, Enrique Bradfield, outfielder. He's a guy who has really solid hit tool, fast guy. He's essentially a leadoff guy with speed, with pop, can find holes in the field. He's not going to hit for power, but he's a prototypical leadoff guy. And then Michael Foray, I also added to this list as well for the Orioles, getting a Pirates starting pitcher prospect, Braxton Ashcraft, who's been doing very well in the minors right now. He could see major league action soon. He's in AAA and he's sporting a while he's sporting a 5.10 ERA right now in the minors. It's okay, folks. His FIP is 388, and he's sported FIPs in the last couple of years of 292, 274, 299. Trust me, this guy's going to start lighting it up soon. And then Andrew Heaney, because just give me a left-handed arm that can give me some innings and not be terrible. That's an Andrew Heaney. So I gave them 2 from the Pirates. I kind of like this deal as something that could happen.
I like it. I like Andrew. I mean, Andrew Heaney's a guy that you're going to want to trade and try to see if somebody else can salvage. And the Pirates are kind of in the business of doing that type of thing. Get some innings out of a guy that nobody else wants, right? Like, and I'm not trying to shit on the Pirates. I am trying to shit on the Pirates. I'm not trying to shit on Pirates fans because you guys know what you've been going through. So I think that this is important for us to delineate. I like this move. It's not even somebody that came up on my radar because I was kind of looking at. I did, fun fact. My next proposal involves the Pirates as well.
Ooh.
but I went in a different direction. Like I said, everybody that I have has control, but I do enjoy the idea of this trade. At this point, you're not looking for an ace if you're the Orioles. Very, 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 very seldom are you going to get that ace in season.
No.
You're going to want to get that guy in the market, or you're going to want to get that guy in a blockbuster at the offseason. So I do enjoy the fact that this does not have an ace caliber guy in it. Yeah, no, I can totally see this happening. I also think that Brandon Ashcraft is worth a little bit more than the 9.8 that they've got him rated on in the Orioles. I think that
that's fair.
But that's going to be what it takes to get anything out of any team that knows you are that desperate for pitching. Because when you have a prospect capital like the Orioles have and such a desperate need, you are going to need to double, triple overpay for guys.
100%. All right, Parker, who do you have next?
I have the Orioles sending their number 1 prospect and the number 2 prospect overall in baseball, Samuel Basallo, over to the Pirates 1-for-1 for Jared Jones.
That is okay.
Because has Jared Jones pitched this season?
No.
No. Is he going to pitch this season?
Maybe.
Probably not. But we're not. I did not obsess myself with what's going to happen this season, because I want to make this very clear. This sounds like, this isn't going to help us now. What the hell is Parker talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. If you, I said this before, if you're truly invested in this Orioles lineup that includes so much young talent that clearly needs a year or two to develop, who better to bring into your ranks, work on, rehab, and get back on the mound to truly head up your rotation than a guy who could definitely be the ace of your staff in Jared Jones, who needs a little bit of time to get back on the mound. I don't think you are currently trying to get arms for this season. Truly do not believe it is possible for them to get enough pitching depth on this roster to truly compete this season. But I think Jared Jones could be the ace of the staff over the next 3 to 5 seasons. And I think that that's something that they need to explore.
Love that. All right. So you brought up a point that is crucially important here, and I don't want to bum out our Oriole fan friends, but your point is a good one. We are getting to the point in this season where the Orioles may have to kiss 2025 goodbye. We're almost there. You can make the argument maybe
about to be at Memorial Day. By the time you watch this, it might be past Memorial Day. And by Memorial Day, you kind of know what the fuck's up. You know who these teams are, and we're just trying to figure out the wild card teams from there.
That's the checkpoint, 100%. Now, your point about bringing a guy like Jared Jones, who, by the way, is not a free agent until 2030, friends. 2030. Yep. You can lock in a premium arm for the Orioles and give up. Yes, I know catchers are hard to come by. I know premium catchers are hard to find, but just
you know what the good news is for the Orioles? They have a premium catcher. They truly believe in Adley Rutschman.
Yes.
Has he played to that level over the last year and a half? No. I think, you know what I think? It's as simple as that. I'm going to be this guy until the day I die. Stop fucking switch hitting. Pick a side of the plate. Focus on your defense and focus on hitting everything from the same side of the plate. And I think Adley Rutschman solves his problems.
If I had a fucking $1 for every time you brought that up about a player, because I see where you're coming from.
There is not an organization more ready to make that change than the Orioles. Look at the guy that you tried trading away in your last trade, Cedric Mullins. Could not switch to the left side of the plate, and all of a sudden now he's one of the better hitting outfielders, one of the better hitting center fielders, because it's a defensive primary position in baseball.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That trade's really solid. I would, if I'm the Orioles, I think if I'm the Orioles, I think ultimately in the negotiation, they probably get more than the 1-for-1. I think they get Jared Jones and a lottery ticket prospect for Basallo.
If not 2 or 3 lottery tickets.
Maybe. But I love that a lot. That would be awesome.
One thing I love that that baseball has done is to make the MLB draft such an event in the All-Star break. And then the trade deadline happening after that, you're able to draft someone and trade them away a month later. I don't think it's happened yet for a top draft pick to be drafted and immediately traded away. We don't trade draft picks in baseball, and this is kind of the closest thing you can do. If you draft somebody that is truly good, and in baseball, you have this weird dichotomy where you can draft a lottery ticket high schooler or a damn near proven college bat. If you can draft one of those almost proven college bats and trade them almost immediately, that's a lot of capital you gain simply by spending a draft pick.
Yes. So that's a great segue, actually, into my last one I have, because you did it in a few ways. Number one is I also took the long-term view on this one. And you are right. You cannot trade draft picks. However, there is an exception, and that you can trade competitive balance round picks, friends.
Yep, compensatory picks.
We can do that. So what we're going to do with this trade is we're going to call the Southsiders of Chicago. Yes, I went there on this one.
Fucking knew you did. I didn't do this for you, by the way. I didn't trade any of your pitching depth for you.
This one, and you may be even surprised how I didn't go to the absolute premium depth for the White Sox, because they have so much good pitching, and I think Chris Getz and company did a great job so they can do moves like this. Here's what I have. Okay, folks. The White Sox are filling the Cedric Mullen gap. I know. This was the bold one, folks. The White Sox are giving up Luis Robert Jr., Davis Martin, who still has team control left and actually is a solid innings eater. Okay, guys, this is not anyone to scoff at. His last few starts have been fantastic. Right now, he is sporting a 3.65 ERA. Okay, this is one of those guys that's a solid number 3. He's going to give you innings. And then Caleb Bonham, who is essentially a 19, 20-year-old shortstop, one of their top prospects. You always want premium positions up the middle of the diamond. We're giving you one of those. Who you're giving us? The headliner here is Kobe Mayo, Judd Fabian, an outfielder. You're going to give us that round B compensatory balance or comp balance pick, and then we're going back to Enrique Bradfield. This is a really close match according to baseball trade values. I cannot talk today. This is not my night. I literally have never struggled to word and sentence in my goddamn life. Anyway, yes. So this trade, Parker, this was kind of being bold, but if this happened tomorrow, I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, I can see this definitely happen. Davis Martin, obviously, being the big name coming from the going to the Orioles. Excuse me. And then it really does help a depth and longevity and youth issue. You have to have all 3 of those things, and Kobe Mayo is those things, and Enrique Bradfield is those things, and also gives the White Sox the ability to draft and let Chris Getz flex the muscles that he has shown to have in the draft. So yeah, I do enjoy the thought of this deal. You just can't wait for Luis Robert Jr. to be off your team, huh?
Okay, so let's be very clear here. I don't want him off my team, but I have psyched myself out so much, and I've come to terms with this, that now, like you're just like, I've come to terms with this, so just fucking do it now because I can't wait. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So
fair. Yeah. Just go get something good for him. I think everybody will be fine.
Yeah, everyone will be fine. Parker, do you have another one? Or was that all for you?
I have one last one. Last one. And this is one, all I did for this one was I went to teams that are currently underperforming and probably will continue to underperform and are probably looking on the outside looking in for the rest of the season. And I tried to find a guy that was found money. Like, you didn't count on it, but you're getting it. And so what better thing to do than to trade high, sell high on a guy that is seemingly overperforming, but potentially has a lot of upside. And where I landed was with the Cincinnati Reds. I landed with the Cincinnati Reds and a guy who has gone from kind of being a middle of the road starter with nothing that really jumped off the page to really performing in a limited, albeit limited, amount of work this year. And I landed on Andrew Abbott, who has made 6 starts for the
Ooh.
Reds. And in those 6 starts has posted a 2.10 ERA. He is currently in his 3rd big league season, so mental math there. He has got 3 more years of control after this year. And the ERA plus this year is a 2.13. Now, why do I say he's found money? Well, over the last 2 years, he has been very solid in his age 24 and 25 seasons. It was a 3.87 ERA, a 3.72 ERA, but the ERA plus in those seasons was 120 and 118. Now, it looks like he was pretty lucky. His FIP is 420 and 504. But this year, he's still getting lucky on his FIP, but his FIP's a 307. So even if it was the worst case scenario for him, he's probably got around a 3.35 ERA. And that's the kind of guy that you can get on the staff that is just going to go out there and put up innings. He's going to be solid. He's going to give you a chance to win every single time he goes out there, and you have him for this season as well as 3 seasons following this. And I think that's the kind of guy the Orioles really need to focus on. And I think that is a guy that is very feasible to get this year, especially because the Reds, if for my money, should be looking for young position player depth to build around their current core of guys like Ellie de la Cruz, Christian Encarnacion Strand, and guys like that. They have a guy at the top of their rotation in Nick Lodolo that is really going to be good for a while, and I think that they should probably keep him around. They have Hunter Green, who's actually throwing the shit out of the baseball this year. He's going to be around for a while, and he's maybe one of the best pitchers in the National League. But a guy like Andrew Abbott kind of seems like, yes, he would probably start the 3rd game of a playoff series for them, but you can figure out that 3rd start if it means bringing in the prospect capital that the Orioles are able to give up. I think you're trading away a Samuel Basallo. I think you're trading away maybe a Kobe Mayo, one of those guys as a headliner, and then maybe a comp pick or something like that on top of it to sweeten the deal. But Andrew Abbott seems like the kind of guy that you would be willing to trade and also willing to trade for, especially in the position that both of these teams are in.
Wow, that's very compelling. I actually like that one a lot. I disagree to an extent on this Reds' willingness to trade him, and this is
Okay.
mainly only off of unique White Sox experiences. They've been prospect hugging in talks with Luis Robert Jr. for the last year and a half. So I know that they are hesitant to trade prospects, certainly pitching. Having said that, if they were going to trade any of their pitchers, I agree with you. I think it is Abbott. But if you look at Abbott too, let me just add what's making his season pretty remarkable for a guy for a younger guy like him who only has 3 years in the league. Right now, his K percentage, Parker, is 31.7%, and he's 11.4 K per 9. That is stud
That is
level
ace
pitching
stuff. Yeah.
Yes, that's like having another Garrett Crochet in your rotation. That's what you're looking at right now. Other than
that's a good comp because he is a lefty.
Yes. So to your point, Parker, if I could wrap this up and bring this all together here, you made a really good point. Like these are the type of pitchers that the Orioles should be after right now because they're in a unique balance here. This isn't a team where we're going to make a superpower, league best rotation and let that win the day. They just need to have their pitching meet their offense. They have the players on offense. They have the team to win a 10-5, 10-4, hell, 9-6 ball game. But they just need the innings and they need guys you can rely on. If you're putting together a rotation headlined by Zach Eflin, say what you want, Zach Eflin, Andrew Abbott, a Davis Martin, like those type of guys, I think you make your team better by a lot, and you make them better now.
Do you know what team that reminds me of in very, very recent history? A team who's just desperate for their rotation to meet the quality of play of their lineup. The 2024 last year's Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah.
And the Cleveland Guardians had basically no starting pitching last season.
No.
And they were held together by a good lineup and a fantastic bullpen and the best closer in baseball. And I'm not saying that the Orioles have a great lineup or one of the best bullpens in baseball, but they have a lineup that they are being forced to believe in right now. You kind of have to, unless you decide you're trading them all away and then your depth is basically as much as the Marlins have right now. Everybody on your team is young and underdeveloped, and you're praying that it all works out. So you're trying to find somebody in a sweet spot of their career that can come contribute now and over the next few years. And Andrew Abbott being 26 years old, I think gives them that ability.
And I mean, Parker, if there's any lineup though that I think can go on a hot streak and turn it around, I think it is this Orioles lineup. And this is
Oh
not
yeah.
even including the Jordan Westbergs of the world, the Colton Cowsers of the world that are still on the IL, Gary Sanchez also on the IL. I think they have potential if they can put the offense together and just get steady, stable pitching. They could sneak into a wild card here, and that's all you need to do. Just punch the ticket to the dance. What I fear about the Orioles, and this gets back to the main point of all this and why we even did this exercise. You know, you mentioned it out of the gate. This is the offense of the future, players of the future. This team on the offensive side is all bought in for the next 4 to 6 years on these guys. If they don't make these moves really soon, that future becomes the present, and then you have a problem. And
It's
if
going
they
to
do not,
be on the level of the, if not worse than the White Sox teams that were supposed to like win a World Series 3, 4, 5 years
yeah,
ago. That's going to be what we're going
it,
to compare them to.
but this is worse, Parker. And I'm not just saying it because I'm a
Oh
Sox
yeah,
fan.
there's more
Here's why
talent
this is.
here.
Yes, and guess what? They're relatively healthy. The problem with the White Sox
Oh
is
yeah,
they were part-time players. They were never on the goddamn field. These guys are healthy and they're talented and they're up and down this lineup. It would be a catastrophic failure.
for sure. They definitely could have used. They weren't even in the sweepstakes, and this is just me talking from a place of Red Sox, but like they could have used an Alex Bregman. They could have used a really veteran bat that's won a World Series and knows what it takes to win and can just stand next to the batting cage and be like, why are you moving your hands so much? Or something, you know what I'm saying? Like something like that. Like can go to a young dude at his locker after a game and be like, hey, we're going out for dinner. Yeah, I know you went 0 for 5 with 4Ks. I don't care. Let's go. We're going out and getting steaks. And like a guy who can do that is such a force in a clubhouse like that that I just think that
Yeah,
that's the kind of guy they need to look to add in the next upcoming offseason. And truly this team is pitching away. I really do believe that the Orioles have a lineup that they can put their hang their hat on here in the next like 3 years. It's just what is actually going to happen in terms of supplementing the rotation.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, for all of our Orioles fans, fan friends out there, man, we're really pulling for you. We really hope that they hopefully turn a corner, and if it's not this season, it's next year, and it better be fast.
For sure. Absolutely.
Parker, wow, we're already an hour 20 into this. Why don't we do our last words? I'll give you your last word.
I'm super excited. My last word is going to just be everybody saw the headline, everybody saw the graphic. Paul Skeens is confirmed for Team USA for the WBC in 2026. You and I are tentatively, hopefully, going to be there. Really excited for a WBC team that doesn't have Merrill Kelly starting the championship game. No shot on Merrill Kelly there. I'm just super
Oh,
excited to see Paul Skeen starting that rather than Merrill Kelly. I
God,
really want to
Merrill
see
Kelly catching strays.
he had no clue when not if when Merrill Kelly watches this episode, he's gonna be like, "What the fuck?" But no, I am really excited because it seems like, especially for this younger generation of players, that the WBC is becoming this thing that actually matters. Uh, it's new. Like we don't talk
Yeah,
about it much, but it is a very new thing to have the World Baseball Classic even exist. It was made basically as a response to the Olympics getting rid of baseball as a year to year, as a event by event contributor to their lineup. So the
mm,
WBC is in all regard the World Cup of baseball. I think that it's begun to mean a lot to every team that plays in it. I think that even the play-in stage that we saw during spring training this year was electric. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, go back and watch highlights. These teams come out and they play such motivated baseball. And up to this point, we really haven't seen a team a USA team come out with a pitching roster, a bullpen and a rotation that really inspires any sort of fuck you or any, super excitement. And like I said, Merrill Kelly was the starting pitcher for the championship game last WBC. And like I said, I'm just excited to see this set the tone, because Paul Skeens is maybe nobody has more to lose on the pitching side than Paul Skeens if he were to get hurt in the WBC in 2026. But that doesn't matter to him. This is a guy who loves his country. He was pitching for Air Force before he went to LSU. And this is a guy who truly thinks that the WBC means something. And I'm really excited for the younger generation of people to get behind the WBC as an institution.
Wow, that's a good one, Parker. Not going to lie. And you know what? I'm telling you what, there's nothing more exciting to me than going to be watching Paul Skeens on Team USA. That is going to be absolutely epic. Looking forward to that. It's going to be electric. The guy's electric just every fifth day. My last word, Parker. So, man, the Rockies. I can't stop thinking about them. Another one bites the dust, Parker. We have another manager who lost their job in baseball, Bud Black after being
real quick. Team. Bud Black means something to me, because Bud Black put out, it was sponsored by Little League, like Little League Baseball, the corporation. He put out a DVD when I was a kid of how to pitch as a Little League pitcher. To this day, in men's league baseball, which doesn't mean shit, but it does to me, I throw the same curveball Bud Black taught me how to throw in the DVD he put out with Little League way back when I was a kid. And he had a really compelling argument of why you teach kids how to throw curveballs the right way so they don't hurt themselves trying to throw one the wrong way. And yeah, he means a lot to me because of just a stupid little DVD he made back in the 90s.
That's awesome. What a pull, by the way. That's a hell of a pull. Yeah. But unfortunately for Bud Black, he is no longer the manager of the Rockies, and the worst season in Rockies history, keeps getting worse. Parker, this is rough math. Honestly, I'm not a math guy, so I probably pulled this out of my ass, but it's pretty darn close. Folks, the Rockies on May 15th have won 7 ball games. They are 7-36. They have a 163 winning percentage. If they keep that up all season, their record would be 26-136. Parker, I thought the White Sox had the worst season in baseball last year, not only actually, but theoretically. There is no way this team can win only 26 games, right? There's no way in hell that's happening.
Colorado fans just know nobody in this world is cheering for that more than your man Anthony over there. Hoping to God is
Stop. As true as that is, we don't always say things out loud. But it is true. I love all of you there in the great state of Colorado and wherever you are in the world as a Rockies fan, but please know that there's nothing more satisfying than seeing someone be the best worst team, but do it at the rate that the Rockies are doing it right now. Wow.
For sure. And I want to point out something, maybe a little bit of a sneak peek, maybe a little hint for something that might be coming here in the next coming days. But there's a guy on the Baseball's Dead podcast named Justin Havens. He pointed out that there's a problem in Big League Baseball if you have 3 consecutive seasons of what might be the worst team of all time in the A's, the White Sox, and now the Rockies in the last 3 seasons. There's a problem. We need to fix it. And really good point by him. So go watch him as well. And like I said, maybe a little sneak peek, something to come. Who knows?
I like the sound of that. I love the sound of that, Parker. Everybody, thanks for following. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for liking. Parker, since we have been on this call, like we're in a business meeting, since we've been on this recording for the last hour and a half, we're up to 62 subscribers, folks. Literally. That's crazy. Man, keep it rolling. Keep it rolling, everyone. Great to talk to everyone about baseball this week. Let's do it again next week. We'll see you later. Take care.